Howdy, y'all. Welcome back to the second episode of DA's Truck Talks. I'm DA. Today, I'd like to talk about how I come about getting started in trucking and how I got to be an owner operator and the steps that I took to get there. Growing up, I was always around trucks at a young age. From the time I could barely crawl, I was always in the truck. I'm a fourth generation truck driver. I grew up with my dad on the road, or when we were real little, he used to manage a concrete plant right next door to the house. So we were always next door, playing hide and go seek in the truck beds, playing hide and go seek, hiding all over the place in the rock piles. Always working on equipment, always in it, always around it. So being around trucks was never a new concept for me. Like I said, I grew up with it, always been around it, and that's where my love really began for trucks. At a really young age, my dad always gave me the opportunity to steer the trucks around the lots or the pickup trucks, and then it got to where I was able to run some of the equipment in the gravel pit or in the concrete plant. You're always running some kind of inloader or whatnot to load up material. So at a young age, I learned how to run equipment, and the first vehicle I ever drove wasn't your typical story of, oh, I drove my parents' pickup truck or I drove my parents' car. The first vehicle I ever drove at a young age is I drove a Sterling cement truck, and that's probably one of the biggest highlights. The company my dad worked for at the time, they actually still have that truck. And later on in life, whenever I was able to get my CDL, I actually had the opportunity to drive that truck again for a few months uh, by myself, and that was a pretty cool feeling to have. Also at the concrete plant, so my dad used to, as a manager, you're in charge of the logistics of your trucks, making sure everything's on time and stuff like that. And part of that is making sure the material is there. So every night, or at least every other night, he'd have to make a run to northern Illinois to go get cement dust, and I would ride with him. And it'd make for a late night. And of course, I wasn't able to do that on the nights I had school as a little kid, but the days I did get to ride and go do that, those were the best. One of my favorite stories that my dad's told years and years and years is we were coming out of LaSalle, Peru, or Oglesby, Illinois, heading south on 39, and my dad was really tired, and I want to say I was 5 at the time, and he kind of set the cruise, leaned up against the door, and was like taking that partial nap where you're not fully asleep, but like you're closing your eyes, at least resting your eyes, you still got a feeling of what's going on. And I was steering us down the interstate. We got pulled over by a state trooper at 11 o'clock at night. So I hurried up and hopped back in the passenger seat in my car seat. When we got stopped, the officer got him up there. The officer come up to the door and was like, "Hey, sir, now don't lie, but did I really just see what I thought I seen?" After that, we had to be pretty careful about where I did and didn't drive. So we tried to keep it pretty local instead of going up and down the interstate. But yeah, me behind the wheel, that's nothing new. It's a lifelong deal I've been doing, and I'm pretty proud of what I've been able to accomplish in my driving skills. Uh, so coming into high school when I was actually legal to drive, every teenage kid's got to have that truck, right? So I go out, and my neighbor was selling a 1980 Chevy Scottsdale, two-wheel drive, but it needed a transmission. Well, he had one, so I bought the truck, $300. Fixed it up. I drove it a whole whopping 100 foot to the other neighbor and sold it for 450. That was how my first vehicle went. Then I had a couple others, but then I got my the high school truck that I really drove. It's a 1992 Chevy, and man, I drove that thing all through high school, college. Man, I still have the truck. It's in my garage. It's kind of a project now, but I really honed in my skills driving that truck up and down the back roads. And the whole time, anytime I was with Dad, I was trying to get him to let me drive. Occasionally, he'd let me drive, but not as much as I'd want him to, or not as much as I wanted him to let me drive. So, get through high school, and I had a scholarship, full ride scholarship, diesel mechanic school. So I went to diesel mechanic school. I ended up not finishing. I thought that's what I wanted, and it just wasn't what, it didn't feel right when I was there. So I got out of that, and I decided I'm gonna go on the road. I'm gonna go on the pipeline. So I went down to Oklahoma, went on the pipeline. Man, that was great. I was 19 years old. No, I was 20 years old and making $2,500 a week. Man, I thought I was King Tut. It was great. I was making all sorts of money right up until winter hit and we got laid off. I was like, oof, well, now what do I do? So I come home and I sat around the house there for about 3 weeks to a month. No, I sat around the house. I was home for about 2 months. I got home in November, sat November, December, January. On my birthday in February, I told Dad, I said, you know what? I'm going to call a couple of people, see about going to get my CDL. And like, I'm going to go drive truck. He's like, I'd rather you not, but I understand if you do. I said, well, Dad, it's hard for me to want to work somewhere else where I don't make the money that I was making like I did on the pipeline. So I called up a local company to the house, and just a local, they did local hauling, and his name is Ed. I was like, Mr. Ed, I want to know if you give me the opportunity to come drive for you. I don't have a CDL, but I'm willing to go take the test. I just want to know that, if I do this, I can use your truck to take the test and then, come drive for you after. So he called me over, told me to come over to the office. I sat down and talked with him. And he says, well, you seem pretty confident. Handed me the cash and told me to go straight to the DMV. So here I was. Didn't study. I didn't practice for nothing. I was going solely based off my life of being around them, and went down to Springfield, Illinois to the DMV and did the written test. I ended up doing all your generalized stuff, but then I got all my endorsements all at the same time, and ended up passing them all the first try. So I was pretty proud of that. I went back, took it to them, and I spent the next 2 weeks, because you got to have a 2 week period in there from the time you get your permit to the time you take your driving test. Actually, I have some driving experience, get some hours in. So I spent the next 2 weeks driving in circles around the lot. I think I took one trip on the road in that 2 weeks. But man, I could back that truck up anywhere. I could back it up blindside. I could back it up, straight around obstacles, all the way across the lot, around whatever you wanted to. I could put that truck anywhere. I was confident of that. So 2 weeks comes around and time to take the driving test. And the truck I've been practicing broke. Practicing in broke. So I had to switch trucks. I went from an old Mack truck to a newer Western Star. Boy, let me tell you what, they shift different. And if you ain't ever drove a worn out Mack transmission versus a new, not so worn out Western Star transmission, you're in for a world of difference. Well, I got her kind of figured out, and we go to Peoria, Illinois. That's where I took my driving test. And the only ding I got on that was when I was trying to parallel park. The lady didn't specify which side of the cone I had to go on. So when I went through the wrong side of the cone to park, she docked me a point on that one. But other than that, passed out with flying colors, and here started my driving career. So my first day on the job, I go take my driving test. The very next day is the day I start, and we were having like 60-degree weather in February. It was beautiful weather, and we were going up to Bloomington, Illinois to a job site, and got on the interstate, I-55 north there at Lincoln. And actually, we're going up I-155 north of Lincoln. And it got about 4 miles north of Lincoln, and a blizzard hit. So my first day driving was straight into a blizzard. Everybody that was passing me, you see them in the ditch a few miles later. And man, we were going to haul some sand, so we hauled some material, and it wasn't a bad deal. I wasn't making the money I was expecting, but I was new to it, so I stuck it out for a while. We hauled a little bit of everything: rock, sand, gravel, a lot of grain, in and out of all the big elevators down by Decatur, and got an opportunity after that to go work with my dad, and he was he was working for a farmer driving one of his trucks, but they were hauling van trailers, hauling seed boxes. So got the opportunity to that. Uh, I ended up moving over closer to him, and we went to hauling seed boxes. And I mean, we went Iowa, Missouri, Wisconsin, Indiana, Illinois, but all pretty close, all within, for the most part, day running. You stay out overnight a few nights. It wasn't bad, uh, but the gentleman we were working for, he ended up passing away, so had to move on after that. So we went on down and started venturing out a little bit more. I hooked up with a company and we started going hopper bottom, and we were getting out to the Dakotas, Kansas, out east some, a little bit down south, and we started really venturing out. And I had a little trouble on the home front, so I decided to take a step back, got out, got off the road so I could try to save my relationship. Was able to save the relationship, but it came a time where she went to college, and I was working, and I was the only one working, and the bills were getting to be a little too much for the local work. So I ended up making the decision. We went back over the road. So went over the road, trained on some flatbed, really enjoyed it, loved all of it, and I got a really, really good opportunity real close to home to go over the road pulling a tank. So I went and tried that. And honestly, I don't mind pulling the tank. Dad was a real big tanker. That was his favorite thing to pull is tankers. So I went out, started pulling a tanker. I did that for a couple of years, and no, I did that for about a year and a half, and I decided no, it's time that I buy my own truck. Now, I wasn't in no shape to buy a truck. The money wasn't there that I needed, and my cousin had just started his own company, and my uncle was leased to him. Well, my uncle had decided he was going to sell his truck. Well, I sat down and talked to him, and we come up with the plan of, instead of me going and financing the truck, I was just going to take the truck over on payments on what he owed left. So that's what we did. On November 21st, I uh, took over that truck. It's a 1992 Kenworth T800, and man, we were pulling a hopper bottom. We were staying only in Illinois, and my cousin had hired a driver for his truck, and him and I, we were putting in the loads. We were making money, but it wasn't. I don't know. I just got to a point where the hopper bottom wasn't exactly what I wanted. I was really had that open deck stuff in the back of my mind, and I really wanted to get back to it. So my cousin, with his truck, he took over all the hopper bottom stuff, and he went to doing all the hopper work, and I rented a step deck and went out, dispatched myself, started running hard with it, but I was still only limited to the state of Illinois, and you can only do so much in one state, especially this one. Thankfully, we do have Chicago, so I spent a lot of time in Chicago hauling loads out of there. Um, Things were going pretty good at that point, so we had a big load over at Kankakee that delivered, and it was time for me to head home. So I'm coming down I-57 out of Kankakee, headed towards Gilman, Illinois, and along the way, something happened to my truck in the back. Driving down the road, and all of a sudden, you let off the throttle, and it'd go all crooked like. So I pull over, and I'm checking it out, and we found that the rear suspension bushings had went out of the truck, fell out going down the road. So the axles, instead of them being, like so, when you let off the throttle, it was literally walking apart, and makes it awful hard to drive like that. But I babied the truck home. It's about 100 miles. Took my dear old sweet time. Drove it very cautiously. Got home, and me and a good friend of mine, we tore it apart in another buddy's shop that was nice enough to let me use it. And man, it cost me about $3,000 to get it going. Then, well, got it going, and I got the opportunity to go out on the road doing windmill blades. So I'm like, shoot, yeah, this is it. This is my big deal. So we took off, and I started off as in a pilot car. Learn to escort them before you haul them. It's a big deal. So I took off. We went down to Texas. We spent 6 months in Texas, New Mexico, Kansas, Oklahoma, all over in the South. Ran hard. Come back, decided it was time to put the truck on the road, and put the truck on the road. And we made it about. No, I took out a loan to fix a couple more little things on the truck. I took out about an $8,000 loan. Fixed some things on the truck, and once again I restarted on the road with nothing in the bank account because I'd been put all the money back into my truck. And we took off, made it about 3 weeks, and the motor let go. Blew the head gasket, and it just turned out to be a real bad deal. I got in a situation at that point because I just borrowed money from the bank to fix it, good enough for me to go on the road, not expecting something like this to go wrong. And that put me in a tight spot. I wasn't able to get more financing, and it was going to take about $15,000 to get my truck fixed. We thought it warped ahead when it happened. So at that point, I am now dead in the water. Got a truck I can't use and a loan payment on it now. And what do you do? If you can't get the money, what do you do? So I had to go back to a company driver. So I went back to a company driver, and I held on to that truck for about a year and a half. And while I was a company driver and I still had the truck at the time, we ran into problems on the home front with me and my fiance at the time, and things didn't go well. I come off the road. I took a local job right there in town. I was going to try and fix it, and things just didn't work out. So, cost me my relationship, cost me a lot of time with my kid. Now, at this point, all I have is I've got a broke down semi and a local job, which is great, I guess, to an extent. You weren't making a lot of money. You got a truck you can't use. Thankfully, I got it to where I had the loan pretty much paid off, so it was all right after that. So I got the opportunity to do a little trading. I traded that truck off, traded off my T800, and I got a couple things out of it and some cash. Put the cash towards some other bills to put me ahead. I sold a lot of the stuff I traded for, a couple four-wheelers, a car, motorcycle, sold all that stuff, got some money out of it, put that money ahead so that way when the next opportunity arose, I'd have that money there. So now I'm a company driver, or now I'm a local company guy doing local hauls, and it just wasn't enough. I didn't have nothing to be at home for, uh, so I decided, heck, I had a buddy hauling livestock at the time, so I took off in a livestock truck. And man, we were running 7 days a week, like all the hours of the days at night. Loads were running together, trips were running together, and I got to a point where I was finally burnt out. And at that point in time, before I got burnt out, so I'm trucking along. We had a couple slow weeks here and there, and I met my new fiance, girlfriend, obviously at the time, but we are engaged now. Met her. Life was great. Got to see her on my free time, and January rolled around. we decided I was burnt out. So we did that for about a year before I burned out that hard. And come to a point, got burnt out. So we took a vacation. I decided on vacation, hey, there's no sense in me running this hard. Like, it's going to lead to me having an accident. We don't want that. So I come off the road, and I decided that I was going to take a little break from trucking. I was gonna do my own thing, spend a little time at home, spend some time with her, spend some time with my kid, and make sure that our home front was on point and strong. So started doing some dirt work, DA Dirt Works. Started that. Things were going pretty good. Had a couple little mishaps, but all in all, we did all right. Coming into wintertime, though, you got to start thinking about the how the work's going to be. And well, anybody from the Midwest, northern Midwest, you know that when winter hits, there's not a whole lot you can do with dirt work on some things. So we decided it was time to go back to work. I went back to work and was down in southern Missouri, and I got a phone call from my dad, and he wasn't feeling the greatest. He's asking me some health questions, and at that point we decided, hey, you're having a heart attack. We think you need to go to the hospital. And he went to the hospital, and they got him pretty stable, got him calmed down, got him breathing all right, and all of a sudden he collapsed. Did a whole lot of CPR, got him brought back, life flighted him over to Peoria, and man, I raced out of southern Missouri just as fast as that old truck could run. I don't think I stopped at a single. I broke a lot of laws on the way up there, but that's okay. Anyway, so I raced all the way back to Quincy, parked the truck, jumped in the car, took off across the countryside, made it up there, and we sat up there in the hospital for 2.5 days, and his heart was starting to gain some strength back, but his kidneys failed, and I ended up losing my best friend, the guy that showed me everything, the guy that I called for advice, the guy I looked up to the most, gone. There's just a crappy situation. Dad and I were supposed to buy a truck together, and we were going to build a truck. And I'd always told Dad that I wanted a W900 with a cat motor in it and an 18 speed. I wanted it to have a lot of power, a lot of speed, but at the end of the day, all I really wanted was to be able to build it with him. And we were going to buy two of them, actually, and he was going to go out on the road, and I was going to go out on the road. We were going to go trucking across the country together, start our own business, and do our own thing. We were going to name it Allard Transportation. And when we lost him, that put me into a negative hole for about a month. Man, I didn't want to do nothing, and I finally made the decision, hey, it's time. I got to get up off my ass, and I got to get to work. And I went back to livestock because I knew that I could run and keep my mind occupied and not sit and sulk and think about it. So I hauled livestock for a few more months, and man, it just seemed like livestock just died off. There wasn't no loads coming in. We were hauling just the absolute bare minimum. So now here I am thinking, I'm going to go haul livestock so that I can distract myself. But yet all I did was wait and got sucked in, and then all of a sudden there was no loads to haul. So now I had even more time to sit around and think about it. Now I'm doing it while sitting in a truck. When your best friend that you lost is the reason you're in a truck, and now you're stuck sitting in the truck waiting all the time, that makes it really hard to do anything. And I put some ideas down on the paper, and I decided, you know what, Dad and I had a goal. We're going to buy a couple trucks, build a fleet of our own, and I talked to the girlfriend, and I decided, hey, I'm gonna start looking around. I'm gonna find me a truck. I'm gonna continue on what Dad and I was gonna do. So I got to looking around. Went and looked at several trucks. And I looked at W9s, looked at Peterbilts. I even looked at a Mack because Dad's favorite truck was a Mack. I looked at some Freightliner Columbias, and really, nothing really like jumped out at me except for one truck. It was a W900, and but it was in rough shape. I mean, it was beat up. Like it's gonna need some work to get on the road, right? So I went and looked at it, test drove it, and there was some major red flags when we looked at it, but something in the back of my mind just kept saying, you know, that's the truck you want right there. That's the truck you need. That should be it. Well, I waited a couple weeks. I went and looked at a few more trucks, and I sat down and I talked to Haley, and we talked and we talked and we talked, and I talked to some friends, and I showed them pictures. I had a buddy that had went with me to go look at it, and we talked about it, and just in the back of my mind, something just kept telling me like, hey, like that's the truck to build right there. That's exactly what you were looking for. And it come time, I called the bank up. They're like, yep, we'll write the check for it. Here you go. So went and picked up a check. My buddy drove me down there, and we picked up the truck. And on the way home, had motor problems. Uh, it didn't go well. Well, it was a second chance for me, and it was already off to a bad start, a really bad start. So, in our next episode, episode 3 of DA Truck Talks, I want to get into the story of second chance and second chances. With that being said, that's going to conclude this video. But the big red truck behind me, that's second chance. And we're going to go through and we're going to discuss what it took to get this truck on the road, and what it looked like beforehand when I first started, everything that was done to it, the money invested into it, and the time invested into it. And then I'll show you guys what it is now and what I've turned it into. And the transformation is crazy. It's nowhere near done. Absolutely nowhere near done. So if you do like this video, please like, comment, subscribe, and tell me some more things that you guys would like to see on the channel. And come back, tune in, episode 3, and we'll talk about second chances with our truck, second chance. Thanks, y'all. God bless.